The global economy is entangled in a web of debt, a complex network that stretches across continents and touches every aspect of our lives. Debt is no longer just a financial term. It's a force shaping the destinies of nations, the strategies of corporations, and the daily realities of individuals. In this interconnected world, nations, corporations, and individuals are all both debtors and creditors, locked in a delicate balance. Every loan, every bond, every mortgage ties us together, creating a system where the fortunes of one can ripple across the globe. As of 2024, global public debt has reached a staggering $102 trillion, an amount so vast it's almost impossible to comprehend. This mountain of debt looms over our collective future, casting a shadow on the prospects of generations to come. This overwhelming debt constrains our ability to respond to emergencies, whether it's a pandemic, a natural disaster, or an economic downturn. It limits investments in education, healthcare, and infrastructure, making it harder to build a sustainable and equitable world. The identity of creditors is crucial. Who holds the debt determines who holds the power, shaping international relationships and economic stability. The balance of power can shift dramatically depending on whether debt is held by domestic institutions, foreign governments, or private investors. Governments indebted to foreign investors face unique pressures, often forced to prioritize repayments over public services, or to adopt policies that may not align with their citizens' needs. In contrast, owing money to a central bank can offer more flexibility, but also brings its own risks. The shift in debt holders, especially towards private and foreign entities, increases volatility and exposes vulnerable nations to sudden shocks. For many, this means living on the edge, where a single economic tremor can trigger crisis. Understanding who the creditors are and how they wield their influence is key to addressing the challenges posed by this unprecedented debt. Only by unraveling these relationships can we hope to find solutions that are fair and sustainable. We must look beyond the numbers and statistics to see the real-world impact of debt, especially in developing countries. Here, the burden is often felt most acutely, limiting opportunities, deepening poverty, and stifling hope for a better future. The policies and decisions that led us here have created a system that is not only fragile, but also deeply unjust. Without change, the cycle of debt threatens to undermine progress and stability for billions. It's time to confront the challenges this debt poses to our future, and to imagine new ways forward, where economic growth serves people, not just balance sheets, and where the weight of debt no longer holds us back. The global debt crisis is a result of decades of policy choices and economic shocks. Since the 2008 financial crisis, borrowing has accelerated, with global debt now a quarter higher than pre-pandemic levels. Governments' necessary economic support during crises added trillions to national debts. Low interest rates made borrowing seem painless, but that illusion is fading. Developing countries' debt has grown at twice the rate of wealthier nations, trapping them in a cycle of borrowing to pay interest. The financial system encouraged borrowing as a solution, creating a dependency on cheap money. Now, with rising interest rates, the cost of servicing debt is skyrocketing, exposing the fragility of the global economy. The policies meant to ensure stability have instead set the stage for a potential crisis. The creditor landscape is shifting in ways that are both subtle and profound, reshaping the very foundations of the global financial system. These changes carry far-reaching implications for global stability, affecting not just governments and markets, but also the daily lives of ordinary people around the world. In the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis, central banks stepped in as the primary buyers of government debt, injecting liquidity and confidence into fragile economies. Their actions helped stabilize markets and prevent deeper recessions. But now, central bank holdings of sovereign bonds have dropped significantly, as these institutions scale back their interventions and unwind years of extraordinary support. This retreat has left a void in the market, one that is increasingly being filled by private investors, ranging from hedge funds and asset managers to individual speculators. Unlike central banks, private creditors are motivated by profit and are highly sensitive to changes in prices, interest rates, and global events. Their decisions can be swift and unpredictable. The share of government debt held by foreign investors has risen sharply, making national economies more exposed to the whims of international markets and increasing the potential for sudden swings in capital flows. As a result, governments must now appease a dispersed and diverse group of private creditors, which limits their ability to enact bold or unconventional policies, especially in times of crisis. For developing countries, This new reality is especially challenging. They face higher borrowing costs, greater risk of capital flight, and increased vulnerability to external shocks. The shift in who holds government debt is altering power dynamics, making economies more susceptible to market turbulence and social unrest. Reliance on private creditors introduces a new layer of volatility and uncertainty, as markets can turn quickly and without warning, amplifying economic instability. Governments are now more beholden to the unpredictable moods of the market, which can constrain their ability to invest in long-term projects like infrastructure, education, and healthcare. The changing creditor landscape marks a fundamental shift in global economic power, one that will shape the future of nations and the lives of their citizens for years to come. Corporations have joined the borrowing spree, with global corporate bond debt reaching $35 trillion. The assumption is that borrowing funds productive investment, but data shows a disconnect. Trillions in corporate debt have not translated into real economic growth. Instead, companies use debt for financial engineering, like stock buybacks, not innovation. This misallocation of capital prioritizes short-term gains over sustainable growth. The corporate sector is now highly leveraged and vulnerable to economic shocks. The borrowing spree has made economies more fragile, exacerbating inequality. The debt crisis hits hardest in the developing world, where public debt has soared to unprecedented levels in recent years. For millions of people, this crisis is not just about numbers on a balance sheet, it's about daily survival, lost opportunities, and futures put on hold. These nations are trapped in a relentless doom loop, forced to borrow at punishingly high interest rates just to pay off existing debt. As a result, their economies are stuck in a cycle where progress is stifled and hope is hard to come by. In 2024 alone, developing countries spent a staggering $921 billion on interest payments. This massive outflow of money means governments are left with little to invest in essential services like healthcare, education, and infrastructure, services that are the backbone of any thriving society. Nearly half the world's population now lives in countries where more money goes to servicing debt than to building hospitals or schools. The consequences are felt in every community, as families struggle to access basic needs and children's futures are put at risk. The international financial system is stacked against these nations, often forcing them to adopt harsh austerity measures that cut social spending and deepen poverty. These policies can spark unrest and erode trust in public institutions. What many of these countries truly need is not another round of loans, but meaningful debt relief, write-offs that can help break the cycle of dependency and allow for real, sustainable development. The poorest countries are caught in a vicious cycle. High debt payments drain resources, leaving little for investment, which in turn stifles growth and perpetuates poverty. This cycle is difficult to escape without bold international action. If left unaddressed, this path leads to mounting social and political instability, threatening not only local communities, but also global security and economic stability. The international community's inaction in the face of this crisis is not just an economic oversight, it is a profound moral failure that demands urgent attention and collective responsibility. Addressing this crisis is not only a matter of justice, but also essential for building a sustainable and equitable future for all. The time to act is now. The global economy faces a refinancing cliff as debt issued during low rates comes due. Interest rates have risen, forcing governments and corporations to refinance at higher costs. This transition poses a monumental risk to financial stability. Governments now spend more on interest than on national defense, crowding out essential spending. Highly leveraged companies face profitability squeezes, risking defaults and economic downturns. The interconnected financial system means corporate failures could have systemic consequences. The refinancing cliff is an immediate threat, a result of delaying economic reckoning. The global economy must navigate this perilous environment with downgraded growth forecasts. The margin for error is shrinking rapidly, demanding urgent action. Leading economic institutions warn of a looming global debt disaster. The World Bank and UNCTAD highlight unsustainable debt levels and rising interest rates. They call for comprehensive reform of the international financial system to prevent a crisis. The current mechanisms for debt distress are too slow and biased toward creditors. The OECD warns of the risks from private creditors and the refinancing cliff. Future borrowing must focus on sustainable investments, not financial engineering. Expert warnings paint a terrifying picture of a debt-laden global economy. The system is not fit for purpose, and the house is on fire. Policymakers must listen and act before the structure collapses. The time for decisive action is now to prevent a humanitarian crisis. The global debt crisis demands ambitious reform of the financial system. A new sovereign debt workout mechanism is urgently needed for fair restructuring. Reforming IMF and World Bank practices can eliminate harmful austerity conditions. Greater liquidity in crises, like new SDR allocations, can provide relief without adding debt. Corporate debt issues require changes in tax incentives to favor long-term investment. Financial regulations must curb excessive risk-taking and promote productive capital use. Advanced economies must lead by example with prudent fiscal policies. The upcoming conference is a critical opportunity for global leaders to commit to reform. Failure to act decisively will perpetuate the crisis and sow future instability. We stand at a critical juncture in global economic history. The debt mountain is a claim on our future, transferring resources from public to private hands. The current system is inefficient, unstable, and unjust, prioritizing contracts over human well-being. Private creditors wield immense power over sovereign policies, creating volatility. Continuing the status quo leads to a lost decade and rolling debt crises. Reform calls from global institutions are pragmatic, not radical. We need a new consensus for sustainable, equitable growth. Political will is required to challenge vested interests benefiting from the current system. We must demand a financial architecture serving all humanity, not just a privileged few. The choice is ours, and inaction will burden future generations.